Hey guys, welcome to the dogood podcast with myself, Rob Watson, and I've got a really great guest lined up for you today. Her name is Bridget Nielsen. She is without doubt probably one of the most, uplifting and positive and inspiring people that you could spend time with or listen to, so I think you're in for a real treat. I first got to know Bridget a good few years ago, and I've been on quite a few of her retreats and I've realised how transformational and powerful they are. She's now she's got a really big YouTube following, and she does retreats all over the world, and she's got online courses and workshops. She really is sort of great inspiration for us to live our best selves and to inspire us to know that there's so much potential in each and every one of us, and she just shares that message, and she does it by following her excitement and playing and really enjoying life. I like to do my interviews face to face, so Bridget is mainly over in Arizona in America for most of the year, yet she's over here now doing some retreats in Glastonbury and Amsterdam, so I took the opportunity to go down and spend a few days with her and record this interview for you guys. So it was really fun, really enjoyed it, and she's got a really interesting story. She really has. She faced quite a few challenges throughout life, and she's really used them as a platform to transform and to grow, and realizing that's what challenge is about. It's actually the put in front of us so we can grow and learn and become better. So you know what, I'm gonna stop talking now and I'm gonna just go straight into today's episode. So here we go. Okay, well, firstly, Bridget, I really appreciate you taking the time out to chat with me today for the podcast. And we've had a pretty amazing day already. We're here in Glastonbury again. This is maybe the third time I've seen you in this space.
Yep.
And today we were in the town, and then we went to the White Spring, and each time we've gone in there, it's been pretty magical. What do you think it is about sort of like Glastonbury that keeps pulling you back and wants you to, do retreats? And
Yeah. I mean, I think it's karmic, and it definitely has this space in my heart and in my soul to come back. And it's very nourishing and yin and regenerative to me, in a different way that I can't get in other places. So it's just very nourishing.
Yeah, I feel that too. It kind of just washes away a lot of stuff, depending where you've been, where you've come from, whatever's going on in your life. It's an opportunity to tune back in, relax, feel a bit more into your body, connect a bit with nature, because there's a lot of nature around here. And
definitely.
Yeah, it's all good. So for anyone who isn't aware of Bridget, from the outside looking in, or people who are aware, this really successful YouTuber, you travel around the world doing retreats and adventures with people. You live in amazing Sedona, but life hasn't always been like that for you. And I'd really like to sort of go back, not necessarily right to the beginning, but to get a bit of a more understanding of sort of your past, your journey, and how that's gone on. So was there any particular moment where you've really felt that triggered your change in where you are now, or is it just a combination of lots of things over the years?
Yeah, I mean, I would take it back to childhood and kind of the culture that I was born into, being very conservative, particularly for women. I was just talking to your wife, Ruth, about this, where there wasn't really a voice, and there was a certain life pattern was carved out culturally for the way that you were supposed to live life. And I tried to obey by that for a while, but very quickly realized that I am a very different kind of spirit and a wild soul. And so kind of the rebellion against that, and then that it was just a cultural constraint of what we're supposed to do and how we're supposed to be. And if anything, I think that really pressurized me in a good way to really push, the watermelon seed effect, that to really spit me out and have no kind of apology for who I wanted to be and what I wanted to do. So I think over just the whole time of going to public school and then university, just finally was so constraining, that I think the big kind of demarcation of me going on my own path was when I graduated from university and was just, okay, I'm out of here. I'm going on this whole other wave of who I want to be, and I don't really care what culture thinks. So it was that rebellious thing that really started it.
And you are an artist at heart. Is that what you were doing is like through school and university?
Yeah, art and business, I guess, were my majors. And so that was always a part, and I'm really grateful to my family for being very supportive of the artist aspect of me. But it was really, there was something more that I don't think just could be expressed through those mediums, which then have evolved into who I am now, but like through travel and culture and spirituality and those kinds of like connecting with other people and how to connect with humans and like loving humans, like those aspects of me, I didn't even, they just were vital, and I didn't know how, but I just knew that those were parts of me that had to be expressed. Yeah,
for sure. And you did quite a bit of traveling when you were younger around Europe, and that's very much planted the seeds for you now coming back and running your retreats and your adventures with people.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, the travel has always been a big part, and it's always been in tandem with nature. And my parents always made sure that I got like exposure, which was very helpful, because then I knew that it wasn't just this kind of Beauty and the Beast provincial town, and there was, what was that so much more that exists. I knew what that other thing was that existed, and and there was no limitations because I always had a lot of support. And so once I was out of the kind of like shackles of school and those kinds of things, then it was just free range, and I knew like that I could go in these other directions.
And one thing that's always fascinated me about hearing the story is that, you know, you face some pretty big challenges growing up in terms of mum and dad were successful, and then it kind of all changed. Can you share that with us?
Yeah. In the 2009 crash, my parents, I mean, growing up it was kind of like middle class, but then by the time I was in high school, my parents were pretty wealthy. And then they lost everything in that crash because my dad was in real estate and made some bad decisions as well, but lost like everything. And it was right as I was graduating from university. So there was this moment where I had to really choose who I was going to be with there was no support. Like there's no like, oh, well, if it doesn't work and you go for your dreams, you can just go move in with mom and dad. There was nothing, like no safety net at all. And I think that actually helped me because there was no going back, and it changed my relationship to like who I was going to be. And there was nowhere to go but up. I guess that was always like the thing too. Because if you're at rock bottom of say like financial space or something, then it's like, well, there's like, you're not risking anything. So I think it was actually a really good position to start in. And I always said that like worst case scenario, if my dreams and plans didn't work out, then I would call up my grandma, make her buy me a ticket to Thailand, and I could live on $5 a day and figure things out on a beach. So that I always had that as my worst case scenario. But for the past, I guess it's been over a decade for sure, I haven't had to pull that card. So. And,
you even talking about then the worst case scenario, that's not such a bad worst case scenario.
Exactly. And you can make really good worst case scenarios so that it's like, doesn't have to be scary. I mean, I do get motivated by certain things that I guess would be negative, but instead of it being scary, like you're going to end up homeless, like on the side of the street, it's like, hey, if things don't turn out, you can still end up in a good position, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I think it's always important to just maybe think about them possible scenarios and then go, actually, is it that bad? Is it worth taking the risks in my life and going down this trajectory? Because I know I can bounce back, and I know it isn't going to get that bad. Most of the time it's just a belief, something, an old pattern, thinking that we can't do something. But, well, one thing's for sure is that, you've really... proved, if anything, that how by you following your passion, following your excitement, that life can support you, and it can support you way better in many ways. I think a lot of us have got these patterns that maybe if we want to become an explorer, a traveller, adventurer, an artist, that in society maybe them things aren't considered a thing that, there's financial weight behind them, particularly creatives generally.
Yes.
So, you're living proof that you can live this life, you can live a phenomenal life, really.
Yep. Yeah, it's a huge blessing, and I think it's really important. Again, it's not taking on those cultural narratives of what something can be. And I think that those paradigms of, say artists can't make money, or you can't do what you love, or like those kinds of things, I think that those are really being kind of demolished, those beliefs, even right now with the advent of the internet and like digital nomads. And I think a lot of that is changing. Whereas like when I started out on that, I guess it is technically like 10, 11 years ago, it was on the risky end where there wasn't necessarily a ton of precedence proving that it would work, which I'm grateful for because I like going into the unknown in that way. But I think now there is pure evidence that you can. And I think it's just really honing in on your talent and the value then that humanity or like a certain people's needs that you have to offer. Like aligning those two things, like figuring out what people need and then having some kind of talent that can assist them in that. I think a lot of people are passionate about certain things, but like maybe they're not, say, necessarily good at it, or like there isn't a need. And I think putting those pieces together and like looking out and actually seeing other people in addition to your own passion and merging those two is really important. And I think that recipe is what's been really beneficial, because I've been able to move from a full-time artist to like retreats and spirituality to like coaching and courses, and I've kind of gone in lots of different directions but been supported in all of them. So I think it's really looking at the other people and wanting to be of service in addition to just your own passion and expression that really creates a recipe for success in that and support.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So winding back, 2009, everything goes, your safety net goes.
Yeah.
It must have felt pretty unsettling for that. What was it like finding out that? Did it happen all at once, or was it a bit of was it phased over a period of time?
It was pretty abrupt. Like it was one of the things where it was like I was at a nice private university, driving a BMW, and then get the kind of the call, right? Like, so yeah, there's nothing left. And to where all of a sudden I'm about to go into my like finals and like in the heat of university. And also my brother pulled out of his university and like get a job, pay for your own place. And of course, like most people have to do that anyways. So we were in a really grateful position to begin with, but it was very abrupt to where I remember for my senior art show, I had to buy super small canvases because I just literally I had to have enough gas to get to college and buy canvases for my senior show. And I had to tell the professor, like, I can't buy bigger ones. I don't have any money. And so it was this really strange time, that was completely unknown, and I didn't know what was going to happen, really. Yeah, it was pretty wild, but it made me dig in deeper and figure out where I wanted to go.
It's quite extreme, isn't it? From suddenly being, have anything you want.
Yep.
To, know it's run dry for a period of time. But like anything in life, if you can get in a good place with it and know that, you know what, everything always turns around. And sometimes you obviously need a bit of time to pass before you go, actually, you know what, that was the best thing that ever happened. Because if not, you might not have the motivation and the willpower, or been forced off in different directions. Without that, you could have been, sat pretty comfortable, still maybe in LA. Was it LA that you studied?
Yep. Yeah, totally. I think it's so important, the availability of challenge. Like challenges has been amazing, and it really has made me like go deeper. I guess in like certain senses, like there was fear in those moments. Like, what am I gonna do? And it was one of those things where I was like, well, I need absolutely gotta go get a job. Like I have to even like live and eat type of a thing. And it was in a job market where the cafe that I was applying to work at, coming out of university, had like a higher or a lower acceptance rate than like Harvard. Like it was harder to get into this like cafe working. Like 3,000 people applied or something. Because like it was that, intense of kind of like a job market at that time.
That's insane.
Yeah. And like people coming out of like really big universities like couldn't get jobs and stuff. So I luckily did get a job there. But I think it's that willingness too, which I was always open to, that I'll do anything. Do you know what I mean? Like to make sure that, well, one, I'm taken care of, and also like that I can be supported to do like what I love. And I guess it's like that the money doesn't mean as much, and like the power doesn't mean as much, or like those things. What means the most is like me and who I am and how I treat other people. And that was like the real big start to that, because all these other kids in the university, we were sitting in like one of the vocational business classes, and they were going around the room being like, okay, it's 2 weeks before you graduate, economy crashed, what are you going to do? And everyone in the room was like, well, I'm going to try and find a solid, secure job. And everyone in the room said this, and these were supposed to kind of be like leaders of America. And it was only me and then another friend of mine that were like, well, this isn't going to stop us. Like we're still, if anything, need to be even more inventive and more creative to express ourselves and like to help the world. And so that just, it was kind of gross to me, like at that moment where I was like, this is strange. Like why are you going to just the base security? And I understand it, because like the root chakra and that base security needs have to be met, but it doesn't have to compromise your passion. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to compromise like who you are. And I think if you can maintain that, then it can start to support you. So
yeah, it's a really interesting story to hear your journey. I've always been really fascinated about it, but the thing that's always sort of really sort of warmed to me is just like how positive you are about it. And it's like, yeah, that happened to me, or these challenges happened to, and they happen to all of us. And It's kind of like how you face them and what your mindset is to them, and go, you know what, okay, this has happened to me, but it's happened to me for a reason, and I'm going to turn it and make sure it's a positive reason, not something that can just tumble and go down. So it's 10 years then since 2009.
Yeah.
What's the little journey that you've gone on from there? So did you go into industry for a bit? Did you work?
I quit the cafe job after 3 months because I couldn't do it too much anymore, and I started. So
you got it, 3,000.
I did actually get accepted. So that was, it was Los Angeles, and cute young girls were, hired. So it was, I was lucky about that. Yeah, after that, I quit, and I started a little social media business, because it was still, Facebook was fresh, Twitter was fresh. And I got a few clients and was able to do that. And then there was still this burning part of me that was unsatisfied with being passionless, like of people being passionless and not knowing their passion. Like that, at that time especially, like it frustrated me. Like I was like irritated by it. And I watched a Steve's Job graduation speech. And actually, I was living in London. Like I had gotten a English boyfriend and was living in London there, like right after college. And I listened to that speech, and I was very inspired. And then I wrote a book. And I wrote my first book, and then I self-published it, and a few different connections and synchronicities. And then I was writing for the Huffington Post, and then I got introduced to some awesome people and stuff, and then went on to work at an ad agency, helping with marketing campaigns. But in that, making sure to kind of keep this passion alive and be of assistance. And then the marketing agency was also still kind of service, because we were doing campaigns for Disney and different companies. And so then I was all of a sudden being able to like market like Tangled movie to kids, and then all of a sudden I could apply that passion, because we got to then create these things around the movie, such as like, well, then what do you love to do like as a kid? And all automatically this passion piece has kind of, stayed as a current through everything. And in that space, I was like, okay, we can start with these kids like super young. Or I was trying to add like greater meaning or greater depth even into some of these big corporations that I was like helping advertise for, which was actually quite fulfilling, but nonetheless kind of draining, because eventually corporate stuff just becomes really, really taxing and insane, kind of like hours and those kinds of energies. So then I had to quit off that, but it felt really good to be able to weave that in. But then eventually I was like, okay, I just can't do this anymore. I have to go back on my own. It just feels really good to not be constrained, so I could have that freedom to move and create how I want. And then moving on from that, I did like an art show, and I started doing big exhibitions in LA and would sell those. And eventually then went more like the whole spiritual journey, like really was catalyzed by all these bigger, deeper desires and passions like burning in me. Like, what does my like soul want and need? And then at that point had moved to Sedona and was doing healing work and healing trainings, and then moved into retreats. So all of a sudden it just kind of like gradually moved into more of my soul driving the ship, but weaving through these other things that stemmed from that kind of break of the money and after college.
It's been an exciting journey so far.
Yeah.
And you're still young.
Yeah.
Plenty more to come.
Definitely.
People who'll be listening to this, how I first got connected with Bridget was we went on to one of her retreats in Hawaii back in 2016. And these adventures like truly have stayed with me and have been some of the, if I was to say now, what the 5 best moments of my life, there's a good few of them have been on these retreats, these moments of stuff, us going out kayaking with whales and jumping in the water with them and seeing them about. It's just, magical, and going to sacred sites around the world and just tapping into that stuff. And a big thing of it is because how you do it, you hold this space really well, and there'll be like 10, 15, 20 other people that come from all over the world. And it's so nice to just be in that space, and it just gives you so much time to reflect, and it's very supportive. Always create a very supportive group, and some of them moments are amazing. So it'd be great to just talk about some of them, some of your adventures that you do, and because you're here now in Glastonbury, you're starting one tomorrow?
Yeah, 2 days from
2
now.
days, yeah.
They're seriously just the best. And how they originated was, I went through this period of community and figuring out how to kind of create a different kind of society, and went into a lot of exploration around those ideas. But the kind of base chakra was never a part of that, because it was in a group collective. And so I had merged with that energy and kind of lost that other piece that I had already had to support myself from the passion. But one day I just woke up, and it was literally pure guidance saying, do a retreat, and it was actually about this passion piece. It's funny how like this is actually a really big thing. It's fun like talking to you and weaving it all together. But I woke up and it was like, help people find their purpose and their passion, and bring them to Sedona and show them how to do that. And it was like a complete download, and I just like laid out the full itinerary. I knew exactly what to do. But then the question of like, well, how am I going to get people to even come? Like, and that fear of like, well, what if I don't fill it up? And I don't know what's going to happen at all. And it just felt so guided. And I was like, okay, I'll just put it out there. We'll just see what happens. And it did fill up. And then we did it, and it was super powerful. People had really cool experiences. And then I just pretty much got hooked, because as you know, like coming to them, they're highly addictive, because you're coming together with amazing people and you're in these sacred places, and you're, exploring these really deep themes and spirituality, and the whole thing is just like a concentrated version of the height of what human experience and connection can be. And so then my imagination just kind of ran wild, and then it would just be like, well, what if we were in Hawaii and we swam with dolphins and whales, and then what if we went to Skellig Michael in Ireland, which he came to as well, and we rode on the boat and then explored that. And so it's just been, because from an early childhood, I had an obsession with National Geographic and traveling and seeing different cultures and places, and then love the sacred sites and like the energy and what's possible with that, and land spaces. And so it's really just this merging of those energies that came forth, and they've just been so deeply fulfilling to me. And even before, like, usually these retreats, it's like, what am I even doing? Like, how did this even happen? And I don't even, 20 people from around the world are just like gonna show up, like, these questions even still come up, and I'm like, I don't know how this happened, and how am I even doing this, and am I gonna be able to do this? Those questions even still come up sometimes, and then it starts, and it's just like magic. And it can be very, very powerful too, because we can change, the world in so many ways, and coming together is a really good way to do that, because we've kind of lost that tribe element. We've lost human connection, in-person connection with nature, connection with ourselves, like those lost connection pieces that then passion can emerge from are really important to me. And I feel like the environment, kind of spontaneously sparks those.
Beautiful. Yeah, I've been on 6 retreats over the time. I've taken a break for a few years. I was, like you say, it was just, they felt so good. And you are topped up as well, and you come back, you're like, I want more. But then it's very important to integrate all the stuff that you're learning.
Rob's the record holder. Let's give him a shout out for that.
No, that's a good thing.
I think it's great.
No, it is. It's great. And as I said, some of the best times. So if people are listening to this, we'll talk about a bit more at the end what Bridget's got coming up. But I would highly recommend either tapping in and going on one of Bridget's retreats, or joining some of her online courses. Yeah, for sure. Amazing. One thing that is runs through a lot of them, which the thing that I would say is about play and inner child work. And when I've been there, I remember after we were swimming with the whales and we came back to the beach, I felt like a kid again.
Yeah.
And I remember sometimes you don't realise how much you've lost that being a child, because you've lived like being an adult in the world for say 15 years, and you can get a bit conditioned with it. Obviously I was at a point where I was kind of had enough and I wanted to go in a different direction, and this helped to spark it. But yeah, just feeling that childlike wonder again, and realising that life doesn't have to be tough and it doesn't have to be a grind. You can have more play and more stuff, and I think the more of us that, and it doesn't have to be grand, you don't have to go to Hawaii to swim with whales. It could just be some form of play and expression. And that's what I've always loved in all of your retreats. It's been all about bringing that child out.
Yeah, and you've been really good at doing that too, been open to it. But that curiosity is just, oh man, there's nothing better than playfulness and curiosity. And I mean, I do it for myself. I mean, literally it is really my inner child that is, hey, you should set this up because I want to really do this, And so I think that sparks everyone else's inner child. But that piece is, like you said, as adults, really lost. And if we bring the child back within us, I think we can really come up with creative and fun ways to live. Like, why does that have to be lost? And I think that through just taking all of us out of our natural kind of just patterning, like those neural pathways of just 9 to 5 or life or whatever it is, and just kind of take a step out of that. I mean, I create extreme steps out of that, right? So that the environment is so unique and like so different that it just, you have no choice but your mind to be kind of wiped, and then this other thing to be reborn and like emerge back out, which is like inner child or your soul or something like that. So I do it in an extreme sense, but absolutely, like it's totally possible wherever you are, for free, to just go do that. Like you were saying, how you just go to this amazing lake by your house and go jump in it and be completely rejuvenated and have this refresh. And I think it's just that, again, like that momentum or those neural pathways or whatever it is, kind of have to be retrained. And you have to set yourself up to do those. You literally have to plan those things, because the adult needs to plan those things in, like for that child aspect. And it can be something as simple as you don't know what's going to happen, but you just create the space for that thing to happen. And so it's important for me, and honestly, that's why I, for instance, do the retreats or do some of these things, is because I need it, and it's way more fun to play with other people than just to play with yourself. I'm definitely like love just hanging out by myself. I could do that forever as well. But there's something just even more. And when I think back to my favorite moments too, like in the past, my whole life, there's this Buddhist meditation where it's like the inner smile meditation. And you have to think back on the most joyous, like playful moments of your life. And so I was doing this like practice, and you have to like hone in on those and like imagine them, and then bring back up the energy, and then you use that energy and you send it to different parts of your body. And time and time again, it's like mostly the retreats, and I'm like, how is this even possible? But there's just like a lot of laughter and playfulness, but it's setting up those sacred spaces for yourself wherever you are, by yourself, with friends, with family, and just creating fun, creating a space for it in your life. And that's really all that it is.
Totally.
Yeah.
And it's accepting, just because you're an adult, you don't have to be a grown up. It's like, it's been 3.5 years since we started coming on your retreats, and also, before that our life was changing in different directions. But since that time, we haven't got kids yet, but we've got a trampoline, we've got a hula hoop, we've got a frisbee, we've got skipping ropes. And you don't have to, it's great, like I would say to anyone, go to somewhere new, have some amazing experience, because it enriches you beyond measure. You can't even put it into words. But in your house, in your home, in your back garden, just have a few things that are about where, yeah, I'll just do that. Like we only recently just got the frisbee, and it was just so fun. I was totally in the moment. And I think anything that we can do, and that's what I love about kids, they're so in the moment. They're not worrying about tomorrow. They're not thinking about yesterday. They're just thinking about what excites them next and what can I do. They do cartwheels. As we get a little bit older, a little bit less flexible, maybe. I'm not going to be so good at cartwheels, but you never know. But yeah, just anything that we can do is just make a big difference to us.
Totally. It's so important. And to like create that, because there does become this kind of resistance to it, where it's like it gets a little bit harder, or you're just not used to it. And so I find like I need to continue pushing my edge to keep that flexibility and adaptability, not only like in the body, but in like the mind, to allow those things to happen. Like I was at the park the other day in Amsterdam, and there was like a little girl doing cartwheels, and I had just gotten off like a 20-hour like travel, so I wasn't quite ready to do cartwheels, but I was like, I totally need to get up and do cartwheels. Like you were just saying, like we need to keep on keeping that adaptability so that we don't like harden. And I always do that in different ways, and you can find your own way of doing it. But I'll jump off, I'll cliff jump, like wherever I am, or I'll get in the cold water, or I'll make sure to like physically do those things that keep that openness, that we would just naturally do as a kid. Like you'd be out in the snow all day just playing around just because. And so I think push through it, even if it doesn't seem comfortable, is where that other thing can emerge.
Another part that I found to be incredibly powerful as well from the playful side of it is, but when you go on the retreats, if overcoming fears.
Yeah.
You know, like you say, jumping off a cliff into a river or whatever, you know, or other stuff, swimming with whales, dolphins, going all these different things. Even just it can be quite a step. You just flying to another place and being there on your own with 20 new people.
Yeah.
It's a huge thing to overcome. I think the more of that stuff we can do, and even if it's some baby steps, but do you want to share a little bit about that, overcoming some of them fears?
Totally. The physicalization, you know, because I think even with the invent of the social media and everything, it's like even more heady, or it's even more this observing other people having experiences, or you're just doing the experience that you can take the picture to prove that you did the experience, but like to actually like submerge yourself in it is really important. So the physicalization of it, and whatever that is, step by step. So like you said, even if it's just a baby step, like going to the yoga class, or like taking that dance class, or like whatever thing that it is that you've wanted to do that is just one little step, and then getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and like the bigger the step, like the bigger the reward. And it's just true. And yeah, I mean, flying halfway across the world with 20 strangers and doing this thing and taking your vacation time for it to be this experience, I'm like blown away that I'm like, wow, people would take their vacation time to just like come be with me and these other people in this place. And it's such a risk, and it takes so much courage, but the reward of that, I think, is just more than you could ever expect. But wherever you are in your own life, just, I think, still taking those courageous physicalized steps, and then the momentum grows, and then you get the positive feedback of like how potent and special and rewarding and deep and confidence building, like that is where self-esteem and confidence is built, is through the physicalization and the acting on those things that you actually want to do, but they might just be uncomfortable. It's so weird, right? Like you want to, but then there's like this resistance.
Yeah.
So if you can push past the resistance just like slightly, just like step by step, then just your whole life completely changes.
Yeah, and you know, you're a living example of that with those things that you've come, and just taking that leap of faith.
Yeah.
And having that trust, and that thing, you know, we'll probably touch on a little bit, but in terms of connecting, you know, more things like spiritually, and having this trust in that intuition and gut, and going that feeling, rather that initial feeling is often the right step to go, but at times then some old patterns start playing in. It's like, no, you can't do that, you shouldn't do that, you've got this to pay, you've got bills to pay, you've got these things, but you know that your heart's singing with you to do them things.
Yeah, the tuning fork of the heart.
Yeah.
Right? It's like when it sings, like you have to go for it. And even if it doesn't come through, like you said this even with your podcast, right? Where you're like, you go towards, say, this thing that you love to do and express yourself. And then all these other things that are seemingly unconnected, like health or these different things, all of a sudden just completely are nourished, you know? And I think that that's the holistic nature of a human being, is one aspect completely feeds the other aspects. And so we just have to kind of be aware of them and really fuel and feed, again, our passions. And like, I think that's really what it all comes back to.
Yeah. And it's like saying, you know, someone's got a certain health issue. It's not necessarily thinking, oh, I need to take these supplements, or I need to make these changes. It's like, actually, what else is going on in your life? Are you enjoying what you're doing day to day? How are your relationships like? How are you feeling in yourself? You know, all of them, it all plays into stuff. It's not just a matter of saying, okay, I'll just fix that and it'll work.
Yes.
We talked about the heart, and, you know, opening up the heart and tuning into that. That's one thing I've found going on the retreats. And the thing is with you will choose particular places to go as well.
Yeah.
So particular high vibe, sacred sites around the world.
Yes.
Glastonbury, Sedona, Maui, you know, all these places.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit about them?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's that reconnection again to the earth, you know, and like that the earth can be so nourishing and teach us so much and hold space for us and be this playground, like to play and be taken care of. Like it doesn't just always have to come through like abundance through like money or support through this like person helping you. Like it can come through these unseen realms of like the earth in certain places. And it's like a spiritual pilgrimage. Like when you put yourself out there and you're like, hey, like you meet the earth halfway, or like you meet yourself halfway, or you meet whatever this thing is, it comes back to you. And so, I mean, I go to the places that inspire me and like call to me because I have like a particular connection to the earth, and like we have a relationship and it speaks to me and it speaks to other people that like end up coming, and it's just tremendous. And it's very helpful for me as like a facilitator, because some of the retreats I do like co-facilitate with other people, but often I'm doing them by myself. But I'm doing them with the place. Like there's this co-creative element, and they hold, like it holds the space. Like it's a facilitation. Like nature naturally can take you on this amazing journey if you just show up. And so that's what it's about for me, is just like showing up, and just then at that point like playing or like tuning in and seeing what emerges. And it's like something that is very that you can trust, I guess, like in this like world of like unknowns, even though it is kind of maybe a scary step to go do something like that, or like even if it's just go to a local park or your local forest and like go for a walk and it's like unknown in that way. I think there's some quote where I think it's Muir Woods and the Redwoods, and he said like you're always going to be like happy and satisfied that you went on the walk in nature. Like it's always going to leave you more fulfilled, because it is a reflection of like your true nature. And so that's how I always feel, and these places are just meant to like awaken that.
Amazing. What are some of the favorite places that you've been to?
Gosh, well, it's great just sitting here getting to look at you, because then I can like scan through all the memories of like the special places that we've been. I mean, because Skellig Michael, and off the coast of Ireland, which is the beginning of the Michael ley line that runs through, so it's a very powerful place that was seen in Star Wars and stuff. It was just like these kinds of just like, what? You're on this little baby boat that feels like it could flip at any moment in the most raging like crazy sea, and you're going to this place that just looks like it's from another world. And I loved, so Skellig Michael is just something like otherworldly for me and really fun. Swimming, especially the year that you came, like swimming with those whales as they were singing was just primordial. Like it was something, like so humbling and so powerful that was, beyond words. So Hawaii's always calls to me, and I live in Sedona, so it's always wonderful. But those two places are particularly wonderful, and of course here Glastonbury, like each of them are just so completely different. It's wild how that happens.
Yeah, we came out to Sedona at the back end of 2016, and what a place. I remember us coming into it, we drove up from Phoenix, it was through the night, but then in the morning, and it's like the scenery around it doesn't seem real. It's like a painting. It's like in your own movie, and it's just phenomenal. And I remember you and your dad took us to Shaman's Cave one day, and the views, it was something's interesting for me, like, because this is where you talk about some of the things when you were a child and how they seed you when you're older. And I had a really deep fascination with the Red Rocks when I was a kid. I used to love watching sort of like old style movies and all the sort of stuff, and just being like, and seeing people out on ranches or just out in that wilderness and that beautiful Red Rock and all the Native Americans, and for us to be there and experiencing it, it literally takes your breath away. And I think that's when you do go to different sites and be in nature, it does take your breath away. And it's there's not, the day-to-day life can be sometimes mundane, go out to work, or you got to make some food, you're putting the washing on, we've got all these things.
Yeah.
So to go in there and for something to take your breath away, it just centers you in that moment. And then when you go on your retreats and it's very transformational and you're with other people, so much can happen in that time. And I think it was a week, the one in Hawaii. It was quite a long trip, or a long adventure, and yeah, it literally changed. You come back a different person, and it's like I said it in some other podcasts. Like when I would go do, say, a Tony Robbins 4-day immersion. When you go do them things, your life is not the same when you come back. It may appear but you'll notice how things are out of alignment when you get back, because you've seen glimpses of how you can live your life and what's possible. And when you're around other people who just build you up, because that's one thing, being around you, how supportive you are of other people. Like, I know sometimes you go on other stuff and it maybe can feel like there's a little bit of a hierarchy.
Yeah.
And I've never really got that. It's you kind of realize that when you're on these things, you're facilitating, and it's a two-way relationship, and you learn as much as what some of these other people learn. And I find that really humbling.
Yeah, it's very humble. I think, it's just humbling having people stretch themselves like to such a degree to put themselves out there, and that's just like, I have so much respect for that. And then I'm completely humbled, like we were talking earlier about the nature of I'm always doing it in these crazy elements that are not planned. You can't control the nature, and so I can't control any of it. You know what I mean? It's just this like spontaneous adaptability that I have to be in a permanent state of, which makes me like very like humbled and respectful of like the whole situation, whether it's like the people or the land. And so that creates a challenge and also like a surrender for me in a special way. But I like what you're saying, because it creates going and doing these kinds of things, whatever it is. It just is a shift of perspective. Like you even coming down here right now to Glastonbury, right? It's just like a shift to get like this bigger perspective and to get this like other point of view, to shift the energy. And ideally when you're doing these kinds of things, like raise your energy so that when you go back, which absolutely happens, you like look at the old patterns of your life and you're like, what am I doing? Or, I need to shift this little thing here. Like this no longer works. And it happens like every time, even definitely to me, even as facilitator. And I'm like, wow, we have to make some changes here, but they're always for the better.
A strong theme as well that runs through your retreats and your life is health and well-being, and making sure this vessel that we're in, it can be, the body can cause a lot of pain, and we can hold a lot of pain, and we can see out in the world how damaging it can be with the diets that a lot of people live, the way we live. Most of us are sat down a lot of the time in front of screens.
Yes.
So I think that's another element of taking you out of it, and you've always put like health and diet there. Do you want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's like, like you said, we're on screens, whatever, 4, 8, 10 hours a day, who knows? And in that space of going, like in the recent Hawaii one, we were on the land. I was counting, like out in nature, waterfalls, volcanoes, like very vast, like untouched lands for 6 to 8 hours a day, for days on end. It's like the ultimate reset, and we need that rewilding as humans, in my opinion. I think it's really, really important. And the health benefits are just like all there. Like you were talking about the forest bathing and the grounding and the oxygen and all those benefits of the nature. And then making sure at those times, because you can go on a vacation, like for instance, like the classic vacation of going on, I don't know, some tropical place and then just kind of drinking a bunch of alcohol and just kind of passing out in the room and whatever like a certain vacation looks like. But to also add into, say, a moment of stepping out of your life and then actually using that to be healthier and like to make sure that you're really eating well in addition to like whatever natural experience you're having, just creates actual more clarity, more physical release, more openness, so that when you do get home, you feel better. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not an escape from life, which I think a lot of vacations and just like recovery of existence and job like and end up being. But it is a bit more uncomfortable maybe to give up some of those things that help like the coping. But I think in that there's such deep relief and satisfaction and like true long-term change. And so I think like the physical body and the nature element of like the health and moving, you know, I mean, even just like hiking and walking, is just, I always feel way better. Like I can't wait usually because I'm on the computer a lot. If I'm not doing retreats, I'm like, yes, there's a retreat. I get to be outside for 7 days straight. Woohoo, you know? So I get very excited about it.
Wow. And some of your retreats are, food themed, aren't they? Health themed. You'll do cooking classes with them, and you'll leave them with cookbooks, and you'll get to really interact with it, and that all ties in with, and then also you are going out doing the adventures and the different things, but it's nice to ground it in that and take it away, because that's something that we've definitely done from being on there. I think we came on the healthy food one, which was in Sedona, and you just, to be absorbed in that, you pick up loads of new stuff, and again you come home and you change the things that are in your fridge, and you get rid of some of the stuff that's in the cupboard and you replace it with some of the new things that you found about. You literally get an upgrade. Yeah. That's what it feels like. You go and do these things, you get an upgrade.
Yeah. You just start doing new patterns, right? Yeah. It's like, okay, and the possibility and the exploration of like, okay, what could it be that would be different, like to life? And then you get an experience of that and a dose of that and enough time in that new habit to then come over and readjust the thing in the daily life, to make it better and to upgrade it, like you said. So I think it's really, really helpful.
And just, I think about it from the outside, seeing you and spending time, it's like, it just be so exciting, you doing what you're doing, to do these things and go to these places, to think, wow, I get to do this,
Yeah.
I get to do these things. And this is like the best.
Yeah. It's pretty insane. It's like, and when I think about it, especially from the perspective of inner child, or like that younger self that definitely felt constrained, going to school under like the fake lights and listening to this like drone teacher, and there was like years of that where I'm just sitting there like an alien being like, what is this place? And like, what is this school? Like, I was just confused and it just didn't feel right, but it was like, it won't be forever. But like, I can just like think of that like younger part of me that like wanted more, and like now thinking back, it's like, oh yes, like that younger self is like, ooh, that's what is in my future. Like, I can definitely like look forward to that. And I think that that's a nice kind of determining arrow, which always like helps me make sure that I'm in line, because there's definitely times that I'm off, definitely times that I have like gotten out of balance, or I need to start doing more to take care of myself. But in those moments, like, I always think back to my inner child, and I was like, would my inner child like be proud of where I am today, and like be excited, and like, have I brought her along with me? Like, is she still helping drive this like ship of curiosity and expression? And if it's a no, then I'm like, oh, dang it, I need to get back on path. And so that always kind of helps me make sure that I'm going in the right direction, to incorporate that. But yeah, I'm extremely grateful, and it's wild and it's fun. And I just think that it's possible for anyone to completely express and execute whatever like their passion is. And just the more that you go for it intelligibly, like in a smart and, valuable way, anything is possible. Like, you can have any life you want. And I think that that's what's so cool about the internet and Instagram nowadays, is like, people are living these crazy lives. Not all of them are perfect, like it seems, but you can live any life you want and be supported by it. And I just think that this is an extraordinary time that is very much so like reflected and visible in our world to see.
Where did these like powerful, strong beliefs like come from and you know, to have this feeling like anything's possible.
Yeah.
And I can go out and create whatever life I wish. I can, like you say, do the inner, follow your excitement, and live life to the heart's content.
Yeah, I definitely give it to especially my dad and my mom, because like they completely, I mean, before I was born, like they were doing Course in Miracles and LifeSpring and like these personal development things, and like they were seekers and like going deep, you know. So I was like raised with these kinds of things, and because my dad was highly entrepreneurial and would take, he was visionary, you know. He'd take this like old broken down piece of land and house and then create it into this like beautiful neighborhood, like as a real estate developer. So he could, like, I could see through him that thing that's like seemed even crappy could be transformed into like have vision. And I think that's really important, and that might be a little bit lost in our world right now, is the long term, like seeing things long term. And I think that's very important for humanity right now, is like, let's maybe look a few generations into the future, but at least just for ourselves, like, well, okay, it might take a few steps to get there, but like, how do I envision this, and then what are the steps to get there? So like having a vision of that, and then finding support, whatever it is, because maybe your family's not supportive, or maybe your partner's not supportive, but there'll be a counselor or a coach. There'll be other people that have done it before. You can find support anywhere, and step by step, you know, steps to pretty much do anything you want. And so I got to see my dad do it, and then my dad was very, and my mom too, were very supportive of me, and then instilled me with like the tools, and the most important tool is like the belief in self. But it's that the belief in self comes by the step-by-step visualization. You're not gonna ever get the confidence if you don't take like a step. Like I couldn't be here right now about to guide a 4-day Glastonbury retreat if at 15 I didn't say maybe travel to Italy and like help navigate the family around. You know what I mean? So like I do see how that, not that you have to have had these like certain experiences, but it is that step that builds the confidence to then, and then also it creates the exposure to be able to have the vision, you know, to get outside the box of what you think is possible. But those things again can be like I was sitting on a couch, you know, in Utah and kind of middle of nowhere growing up, but I had National Geographic. And I could see Stonehenge, and I could see these things that existed in the world. So it doesn't even necessarily mean that you have to, you can get the inspiration even in your own house, but you do have to take some sort of step that builds the confidence so that you feel like you can actually go and pursue that thing.
Yeah, amazing. One thing you touched on then is terms of, like, often when people want to suddenly make some changes and they get some inspiration and they want to change course, like it might be wanting to change the diet, it might be want to change career and stuff, and often if they're surrounding around them, say family, friends, don't quite get these changes that these people are making, there can be some resistance from it. I think you made a really good point that there is other people around, there's coaches, there's people online that you can connect with to show that they can help pull you in that direction.
Yes.
Because I think that's part of the challenges of as people kind of wake up and do that stuff, they do have to contend with their old surroundings, and it's going to be a transitional time before, well, the surroundings change.
Yes, absolutely. It's critical, yeah, that it's available. Like that's just one thing I think that needs to be like said, is like it's available. And when we're in these certain old dynamics, it can be more challenging to create the change and sustain it. But I think if you can do it within the challenge of your environment, I mean, it's even more confidence building. It's even more empowering, and you can do it in an even bigger way next time. But you definitely have to figure out some sort of support system, because I would never, ever be able to do everything that I did. I mean, the whole culture was going against my kind of soul, general, free nature when I was young. But I had my little family. I had like my mom and dad and brother, and like they were supportive. So I had them. there wasn't really anyone else, but I had them. So it might not be your actual family, but you have to have someone so that you can just have that boost. You know what I mean? And from an esoteric perspective, you absolutely have like guides and angels and like ancestors, and you have a lot of like non-physical support too, which I think is very important to remember. And without those pieces guiding me, I mean, those were critical other miraculous pieces that I couldn't have foreseen that have absolutely guided me too. So I think developing and seeking out and receiving and those kinds of resources from physical people and things, and also non-physical people and things, is very important.
It feels as well that for a lot of us, and seeking more is freedom. It seems like because we grow up in a world and there seems to be lots of structure and it's very rigid and there's a set path to you to go down.
Yeah.
And a lot of us go down that way and think, this isn't making me happy. Yeah. This isn't freedom. This isn't what I would think of being success and happiness and calm. And something that I'm seeking in my life, and you very much seem way further along than in a lot of us, and it's inspiring to know that you can carve out a different life for yourself, a life with more freedom, with more joy, not feeling like you can make up your own rules.
Yes.
In a way.
Yes.
And that is it. That's what the light, turning darkness to light, pure transformation. It's alchemy.
Yes. Totally of the Matrix, because like, and I think there is like, I think that rebellious like wild nature has to be present, and where you are okay with maybe stepping on toes or making mistakes or going against the grain, like that has to be kind of a part of you that is clicked on for like the rest of this other stuff to be able to take place and take over, because you can't be people pleasing and like trying to fit in at the same time of doing, you just have to be okay with being different, and I think that in those certain moments you might be the black sheep stepping out on your own, and it might be, again, unknown territory, whether it's like a certain business or a certain way of being, but at the same time it's necessary. And again, this is a different time like than even 10 years ago. Spiritually, you can do and be whatever you want. Like entrepreneurially, you can do and be, you can live any kind of lifestyle. Like we're in a very, very free time. So I think that that's cool. The excuses are gone. You know what I mean? Because the pathways are definitely kind of paved at this point, which is really exciting. So then at that point, it's like getting clear then on which one you want to take, and which one really is for you. And I think taking the time and the space to step away from that life, like we've been talking about, your everyday life, to get clear on that is step one. Yeah.
What's step two?
Step two would be to decide and physicalize, right?
And do it. Yeah. One thing I've noticed, and it was happened to me when I was much younger. We were in a business for about 5 years, and then some student had got in touch and asked one of my employees questions, and he asked me, and he basically said, why did you set up Raw? And just intuitively, that the word that came out with me was just to have fun and make it up as I go along, because we don't know how to do anything unless we just start. You can have all the grand plans in the world, you could do business plans, you can write stuff, it might look great, sound great, but you just have to start.
Yes.
And this is what I'm really finding amazing now about the educational system, how it's going to be transforming. People can, through their own, say for instance yourself, some people in the past, if they wanted to go do some of the things that you do, might have to go, spend all this time doing theory and course, but now, because technology is so open, you go, well, I'm going to start a YouTube channel. I'm going to share the things that really inspire me, that I'm excited about, things that I'm interested in, that have helped me. It becomes, and then over time that grows, and then that becomes the thing to transform and to do the things that you want to do. Absolutely. So talking about your YouTube channel then, how long has it been going?
I think 6 years. Yeah.
I think as we speak about, about tens of thousands of followers, 65,000 followers on there, and I think you've done hundreds of videos. Yeah.
it's a lot of content, a lot of creation. It's felt really good, because it's been just a place of expression. I truly never thought, and kind of never wanted anyone to ever see any of it. But at this point, it's very therapeutic. It's my own therapy. That whole saying of like, you teach or you share like what you're actually learning yourself is definitely true. And it just feels good because back in the day, like when I was younger, I literally was scared of speaking out loud in front of the class. I could not public speak for the life of me. Petrified. Like that was the state in which I was at. Like I couldn't speak. Like that was not a part of where I was at. So to be able to have a platform where I can, and I can practice that, and I can practice sharing what I feel and what I believe. And again, it's that physicalization of going from thought to even just speaking it is huge and shifts everything. And then if you're speaking it, and especially making it public, then it becomes kind of rooted, and it becomes something that you can stand on and that it gets more clear. So it's been a powerful expression and place for me, and I'm really grateful for it.
I think one thing that always stood out for me and why I've maybe followed your channel for so long and stuck with it is because you're so honest and you're willing to be vulnerable as well. And I can often feel maybe I don't get that with some. I think some can be very much like, these are the 5 things that you should do to transform your life. And yeah, there's going to be elements of that, but I think you ground it in real experiences, and that's always, I think that I connect with that way more, and it makes you think, yeah, you're going through some of the stuff. You may be people might put you on this pedestal of what you're doing now, millions of views on your channel, going all over the world doing these things. Yeah, you still got challenges.
Yeah.
You're not complete, if there's ever a term of being like that. And to talk about them things, people can relate to, and then it may inspire them more to go, well, if Bridget's doing it, maybe I can go and do that as well. Maybe I can take them steps forward. Might not be a YouTube channel, but it might be a podcast. It might just be anything. You might want to start going to these arts fairs and selling some of the things that you're interested in, or taking bees and making honey. Anything it might be. Go, well, yeah, I can do them as well.
Yeah, and that's the most inspiring thing to me is like you taking this step and making this podcast, or anyone like taking the step. Like that's it. That's like everything, because that's where it starts. Like that's what's step 2 technically, because you have to get clear first, but it's the real step. Like you actually took the step, and like it is that first step that is the biggest hurdle. That's it. It's like the whole Indiana Jones taking that step, leap of faith, right? And like there is nothing there. And once you take that first step, there is something there, and then you can keep walking. And so that is like the most inspiring thing to me. And people like you doing this is like what makes it really fulfilling for me. Just seeing that it's actually helping people and affecting people is still pretty incomprehensible to me, even though like a lot of people are reflecting that, like, what? Like it's still hard to believe, and even though I'm meeting a lot of people in person and talking to them about it, but that's really what it's about, which I didn't even know that could happen. It's almost unbelievable. And it's important for me to keep like the relatability, because people are starting to have this perception of this like other thing that I am, and that's why I think meeting me in person and like seeing that I'm a human, and that's really important for other people to see, of like other people existing in the digital space, is like they're human still, and I think when that can still be relatable and brought down to that level, then those people can see that they can actually take those steps and be that too. And so that's, I think, my next phase is really, how do I make that still very relatable? Because like the bigger you get, the more pedestal is forged to where it's like, how do I become that? And so I really want to make sure that that's intact so people can feel like they can.
just talking about that, people maybe putting you on a pedestal, and you get so many lovely comments on some of your stuff. I'm interested to hear how you kind of like keep that in check a little bit with you, because sometimes I you see it, it can get swept up in this thing, and the ego can be leading the way. So how do you balance that?
Well, there's always, we were talking last night at dinner, waves of availability of opportunity to go to this next level. And I get to check, coming from like a spiritual perspective, it's like, is it coming? Well, to be honest, Patrick, my partner, really keeps me in check. And the people around me keep me in check, because some of it can just be this like spiral where you just kind of almost get lost because the momentum's moving so quickly. And he's always really good at keeping me in check, because he's like the integrity meter of like life, which is really cool. And it's like, are you doing this for power? Are you doing this for money? Are you doing this for sex? And it's like the check of like the lower chakras. And so if there's like an event I get invited to, or like this person that wants to like really partner with me, it's like checking in, and it's like, is it for any of those reasons? I mean, sure, there's going to be some power, or sure, there's going to be money involved, or sure, there's going to be these other energies. But like at its core, are you doing it for good reasons? And so I have waves of those opportunities that come up. And yeah, it can start to become like, ooh, like shiny, exciting. And those things start to bubble. And then I'm like, oh, okay, wait a second. And usually if it is out of integrity, say for the wrong reasons, it's definitely going to be out of integrity with my soul, which is I've built that relationship, as we've heard, over my life, of being like, like it's really important for that, like that passion and like that certain energy. Like there's a certain part of me that has to stay like alive, like this flame. And if it dies, it's over. Like nothing else matters. And so after that check-in, which might like I play around with it for a while or something. If that is going to be dimmed in any way, it's not worth it. And it's for the bigger picture of like who I'm developing as a soul, and the evolution of what I get to like share with people. And so I have to come back to that. So yeah, I would say Patrick and that flame of who I am keep me in check, even though I might dance around with it for a minute. Yeah.
I think because you've done a lot of the, a lot of inner work and a lot of the spiritual work, you kind of realise that everything in a way is it's a reflection. Mm-hmm. So if something is showing up to me, it's showing that something's still out of alignment with me.
Yes.
So obviously, you've got this really successful channel, you're doing all these things, and technology has been a great tool that's available to all of us now. Like you said them before, there's no excuses now. You don't have to, if you want to, 20, 30 years ago, if you wanted to start doing videos, you're like, okay, I'm going to have to get into broadcasting, I'm going to have to work my way up that. It's going to be, loads of people are going to be competing against this one job. We're not all going to be able to be on the TV.
Yep.
Now, we've got the technology, we've got, all you need is a smartphone and the courage to go, I'm going to do this.
Yep.
I'm going to share that. So how do you, because you'll be so involved, and like you said before, you coming on these retreats is a way to get away from technology.
Yes.
Do you find it quite challenging? Because even though it has to be a tool for you, particularly social media, you'll be pretty active on that.
Yes.
How do you keep yourself a little bit in check with that?
Oh yeah, it's funny. It's like, well, there's the game of ego check, right? And then there's the check of kind of the game of YouTube, or the game of the digital life. It literally is, I think of it as like this, it's a video game. I mean, you actually have a stake in it, like in as far as your, say careers on it or your income's on it. So it has even more weight than just going and playing a video game on your own. But there are techniques, there are tools. You can win the game if you know how to play it. And it becomes pretty crazy, because it's that oh, you get to this many followers, and that's like, well, I could get to that. You get to this many followers, or you get to this income, and there's always this. It's never gonna be, like, good enough. And so for me, it's a constant check. It's actually that piece is more challenging, because it's like, well, I could just work a bit more, and like there's always stuff that you can do. And so for me, it's balancing. That's like the entrepreneurial balance, like where it's like, okay, there's no off button. I would at moments love to have a 9-to-5 job, and they're like, hey, clock out, you're done. But I have to be my own disciplinary to make sure that I stay in balance. And so, it's challenging, and I just have to cut myself off and develop good habits of making sure I'm not on too long, and I'm getting other, like, doing my yoga or doing my meditation and connecting with friends and stuff. So it's just like a working discipline. And I think, again, my partner Patrick keeps me in check with that one. I think if us humans were left on our own, we might become scary by ourselves, and it's really important to have good people around us to do that. But I'm getting better and better at it, because there's this, especially in the past few months, there's this deeper soul force really calling to me, saying, hey, it's time to go to the next level of creativity and depth and spirituality. So there's definitely something emerging that's coming forth, and just keeping perspective. Like, all of that's just a game. And I really like thinking too, like, YouTube could shut down and everything could be gone, and no one could ever even know that I even exist tomorrow. Like, so keeping that kind of like the mortality of even the platform is really important, so that I keep in check, like, what really matters.
Yeah, that's wise. And then just talking about technology, because we're living in a world now where it's kind of, it can feel like it's just running away. It's out of control. I was chatting with a friend just at the weekend, and he was telling me about his son, who's about 14 or 15, and basically just spends all his time in his room on games with headsets on, chatting to his friends. And supposedly he's got a girlfriend, but he never sees his girlfriend in physically. He just talks to her via these headsets.
Whoa.
And I'm kind of thinking, this is like, that's a scary path to be going down. Like, how he's going to be emotionally as he's growing up, if he's just seeing things through this screen plugged in. Virtual reality headsets are kicking in. We've got AI, which is ramping up. We talked a bit last night about 5G. It's we're at a time now which is, it's challenging, isn't it? It's really challenging.
It's getting borderline scary and very, very weird, and it's so well done to keep us addicted and on it. And so it's already hard enough kind of like to keep the discipline, but now it's like ultimate willpower is really required when in the context of the momentum of daily life, but these check outs from it, and that rejuvenation, I think, keeps everything in perspective. Because if you're on, say, like if I'm working on videos and doing digital stuff for like days at a time, I lose perspective, and I don't even remember that I'm out of balance. But if I'm coming back from a long morning in nature, I then can feel it and still stay connected. So I think it's also very much so coming back to our bodies, like being very, because that's like all head, right? That's all like in your head. And so like being still very connected to our bodies and very connected to like our feeling sensations and our intuitions and like nature, and those elements are just going to be like absolutely critical, and not buying too much into all of these different things that just become normal, so it's interesting.
So I'd like to talk about, I think of you as this, really strong feminine woman, but, got the balance going between, in a way, the divine masculine and the divine feminine. And I think, again, we're living at this time where you see out in society, and I think there's few things that feel really out of balance. And if we're not careful, some of the, the extreme views could really start to pull other people along the way, in terms of what I see, in terms of, like, I'm totally all for more women stepping up, having a voice. Most of the people that have been on this podcast have been women. I'm like, I want to champion, I want to share your stories and get them out there. But I think there's also a side of it, like a bit of this radical feminism movement, and almost like trampling over men.
Yes.
And don't get me wrong, over the past few thousand years, men have done some pretty horrendous things to women. I do not deny that, and I think there's a lot of rebalance to come into place. But I don't feel the answer is for women to act like how men have been acting for the time. And I don't think that's the case again, but I do see it part of the way. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
I completely agree. That with all of that there's been an imbalance, there's been, quote, injustices, there's been suppression, and we're seeing this wild swing of kind of overexpression to where, like, if you haven't been able to speak for a long time, you almost want to yell, to remember what it is to be heard. And I think that that's really what's happening right now. And also the deep, very intuitive element of the feminine has been so lost that, like, for me personally, I don't even know what it is. Like, part of my life's exploration is like, well, what is the feminine? Because I don't see it in very many places. And one of the only expressions that I have, like, really received from and learned from is nature. And, like, she teaches me, like, Maui teaches me, like, what femininity is. And so I think that that's part of it, is we're like, okay, well, now I have a voice and I'm kind of yelling, and all I see as an expression of power that's available is what a man was. So I guess I'll just do that. And I'm also competing in a world of that. There's no security for, like, women necessarily anymore as, like, a wife or those kinds of cultural roles. So I do have to take care of myself. And now I also am competing with men, so I'll just be a female man. I mean, and that's a bit extreme, but it's kind of not. Like, I'm seeing a lot of that, and I see that in myself. And that's cool. That's fine to be that way. But I think just to consciously, like, for myself, I am consciously aware that that's what I'm doing, and I'm consciously aware that that is not all of me, and that that's not a balanced version of me. And so I'm absolutely figuring it out. And that's part of my own spiritual exploration and my own personal development, is like, well, what does this look like, and why is this important, femininity, and, like, how do I bring this back in my life? And it's one of my personal biggest challenges, to be able to be, like, a powerful female entrepreneur but still remain feminine. Oh gosh, and then within relationship to, like, a man, and how do I empower him to be masculine, but then I surrender into the feminine while still leading a group of 20 people, so it's a crazy dance, and I'm learning about it, and I'm like understanding it more and more. But one of the things that I do see is that the certain pace of the culture that doesn't have cycles does not support that yin energy. Like, that's something that I very much so see. And even if it, say, doesn't allow as much, quote, success or whatever, I'm going to explore what cycles are. Like, even following the cycles of, like, the season, and, like, going more inward into the winter and not doing as much, and, like, just following that, and then our own cycles within our own, periods or moon cycles or flows, and exploring that. And to me, what has been coming through, and even just coming through since being here in Glastonbury, is that through a deeper source of sourcing from, like, nature and from this primordial unseen place has a different power that is creation, that is extremely powerful, but a different kind of power than kind of the mind, planning, yang, assertive action, like that space. And so I'm learning how to create from a different space, which I am learning rejuvenates me and actually might have more, quote, productivity in the long run, or at least more clarity or deep creativity within it that then has more value, like to my own soul and to other people. So it's an absolute exploration. I don't know. I am just figuring this thing out, but I can definitely see that there's a major imbalance, and I'm like really happy that you asked that, and really happy that the conversation is being looked at, because I mean, it can literally create, like problems to where maybe we won't have a future generation if we don't figure out how to balance ourselves, right?
Yeah, I'd like to think it could just be a potentially short period of time where people have suddenly, as you say, they've found the voice and they need to say something, and they might as well just let it all out, and it might be a lot of anger in there as well, because all this has been held into it. So however that may last. And I think it's also as well about this time as well, we're thinking from a male perspective how to be the new man. You know, like if men have lived so long, and we've been built into this mindset of dog eat dog, very competitive, survival of the fittest type mentality, to this new mindset that actually, no, it doesn't have to be about competition. It can be about collaboration. It can be about supportive. It can be about being honest and vulnerable, but still being a man as well. And that's something that I'm exploring as well. And it's a challenge, and it's going into the unknown, but it feels totally right. Mm-hmm. And what's helping me is certain people online, which are just, they are, helping men grow up now as they're going through this transformation, to support them. Got the likes of Jordan Peterson, who I think is a really strong voice. He's controversial in many circles, but I think actually if you truly just listen to him, if you sit down and listen to some of his lectures, I would be surprised if you couldn't nod along in agreement, because it's grounded in such experience and such knowledge. And then you got other people like, I think Russell Brand is doing a phenomenal job right now. He's been totally vulnerable, talking very deep about his addiction, some of his insecurities. And it's really amazing to see people who are out there which have got such a presence, yet they're able to not wear a mask. Basically, the mask is off.
Yes.
And I think the more of us that can just take that mask off and know that it's okay.
Absolutely.
And there's other people there to support us as well. I think we're going to be all right.
Yeah.
We're going to go down the right path.
And it's a testament to it being something that works when you see, like, Jordan Peterson's demographic, which he talks about, which is mostly young men. The very demographic that rebels against any kind of, like, patriarchal, like, constraints, like, that he attracts them because they do want responsibility and, like, they do want a role. And I think that that's very much so a part of the aspect of this new feminine, is to absolutely embrace the men, not to, like, henpeck. Is that the word that you guys say? Henpeck? Yeah, like to emasculate or to put down or to, like, demonize, like, then the men, but to, like, encourage the new man and, like, help us learn from each other of how we can dance together, because we need both. We need both aspects in our own energy, like the masculine and feminine, but then we also need those dynamics, like, in our society and, like, as parents and as these different roles. And so I think that encouragement of the masculine it's very important to me, like, for that to be just as celebrated and explored and expressed as the feminine right now. I mean, that might be controversial, but, like, it seems very, very important.
Yeah, especially in these times. And I think as more of us can start to, like, own our own power, become more whole in ourselves, then there's not necessarily going to need to have this feeling of putting someone down or controlling someone else, or this tit for tat, as we talked about, henpeck, whatever that may be. It's kind of, no, we're becoming sovereign beings, individual in ourselves. So yeah, it's a really important subject, I think, and it's very polarized in society, and it doesn't feel like we just need to be having more of the conversations and realize at our core we've all got some of the most basic needs, and we're just all looking for them to be, you know, to be supported and to be nourished. And we've got so much more in common with each other than we have against, even if you're male or female. We've got so much, and the more we can focus on them things, the less it'll be divide and rule, which we see very much in society and politics. And realise that we can actually come together and we can work through this stuff, you know?
Absolutely.
We can, and we can create this better world. And I totally believe in me that we are going towards it. There's no doubt. There's so much change going on now. There's so much turmoil, earth changes. We were talking just the other day, volcanoes going off in Bali. There's all sorts of stuff's going on. There's chaos everywhere, but it feels like this is the time. Okay, well, we've got to face all this stuff. You know, let's get it out on the surface. Let's release this stuff, and we can make a better world for us. I believe it. Some people might think it's a little bit, you know, wearing rose-tinted glasses, but I think it's just being more having a positive outlook and having that mindset.
I think that's as important as anything, is right, like the outlook and perspective around it and being positive around it, because if you're not, then we're definitely screwed. You know what I mean? But to have a bright, again, vision of like where you want it to go is critical.
Amazing. So obviously you're inspiring loads and loads of people on your retreats with your videos and stuff. Who are you, like, who's inspiring you? Who are you looking up to? Who's feeding you for your next expansion of growth?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, actually, I mean, Jordan Peterson, definitely. Over the past year, I've been like listening to him a lot. Russell Brand too, yeah. So they're both absolutely inspiring me. I have certain spiritual kind of like teachers or people that have really like gone deep into the spiritual sector, such as like Robert Gilbert from the Vesca Institute in the United States, or like Sergio Magana. People that have like just, they're not trying to be gurus, they're very humble, and they're just like spreading the wisdom and like just doing their work. And so those kinds of people are very inspiring to me. And just honestly, like everyday people, like that's like those reflections of people making change and transformation in their own relative way in their own life, seriously it like really inspires me and humbles me and teaches me, you know, like I need to like see other people. So I think just meeting people like really is inspiring, and those are all the people that I can think about. Yeah. You
touched on then about some of them people who don't have that sort of guru type of energy and followers and people, and I think that's the thing where we're really moving through now. Maybe in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s there was then more focal points that people would, you've got Maharishi, you've got Osho, and people would kind of just give themselves over and go, I will follow you, I'll join your community. Some people would say cult, or there is some along the way. I don't necessarily think Maharishi is like that way, and even Osho to some respect. I think people just truly believe in stuff, but I think we're moving to this time now where it's like we're all our own gurus.
Yes.
And we're just like, for instance, Christ. People would talk about, you know, like going and worshipping him and he gave himself, and it's like, actually no, I don't believe Christ wanted that. I think he was teaching us all that we've all got Christ within us, and we are the embodiment of that, and we are our own leaders. But we can use people like yourselves and other people as that reflection to help them move on, to inspire them.
Yes.
That's what it is. It's just about feeling inspired by other people.
I completely agree. Yeah, it's just that inspiration, empowerment, and then some tools to bridge that gap so that you can actually feel inspired. You know what I mean? Or the steps along the way to get to certain places. But it's definitely, which I think is why it's tricky, is like we have to do it ourselves now, which is like a deep responsibility, you know, to our spiritual journeys, to humanity, like the full self-responsibility. Like there is no guru, there is no savior. Crap. Like, and also like, yes, finally, like it's back in my hands. Like I would rather have it in my hands, you know? So I think it's a powerful time for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You touched on tools then. What are some of the tools that have really helped you? Maybe rather than say this is what people should do, but what's some of the, you know, whether it's day to day or just some things that you've used over the years that have helped you to transform?
Yeah, I mean, I think just being open. I mean, in those moments of, say, like, in those moments of resistance or triggering, of just being humble and open to a new perspective, or to not having to be right, or to not knowing. I think that openness and willingness for the solution, or for like a solution, is like a very important perspective that's really helped me, so that you can get the solution, or so you can get resolution. So I think like openness and willingness for change and adaptability is pretty much one of the most critical things. And then truly seeing like the positive, you know? And so those just like as like one kind of tool, but there's a million tools. I mean, such as like, you know, meditation or yoga, or I think just like holistic balanced practices are just very important and kind of can't be dismissed, even whether it's exercise or you know, healthy relationships. So I think just doing those checks, like I think everyone knows what they need generally and know what they need to do. So I think it's just taking that action step.
Yeah.
So the physicalization and then the openness to it, I think is really, it might be just super simple, but super challenging sometimes.
And one way I've found is to let go of some old patterns is repetition of a new thing. Like you say, whether it's yoga or meditation, but turn it into a ritual. And it literally like will rewire you. Mm-hmm. And it could be, and just having that commitment and saying, you know, I'm going to do this new thing and I'm going to do it for a month or 2 months. And then it's just going to be, that's just going to be part of it's going to be like brushing my teeth. Every morning I'm like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to meditate, or I'm going to do this. I'm going to go out for a walk, or I'm going to journal. Just anything that just will get you into a better state.
Yes.
Because when you're in that better state, that's when you're more likely to make more positive action and feel better about life.
Yes. And it might sound strange or like, I guess like cliche, but like truly that whole kind of principle of like vibration is the most important thing. Like your state, and making sure that your state is appropriate for whenever you're going forth into something is like foundational. And I like have heard that a lot through like Bashar and different like spiritual people talking about that. And Patrick, my partner, has always been like, your vibration, you have to make sure your vibration's in check. And he's always been really into that. But seriously, it really does. Because like if you're doing something from a bad state, or if you're holding a bad state, like you can't do anything, or you're not doing it from like the right place or the right perspective. And so whatever can and so that's where like the openness and ability to like let go and like move through those things so that you can get back to your equilibrium is very important. And then those practices that particularly for you work, and then doing them enough to like build up this like certain vibration or state to where you like are a happy, positive person like most of the time, you know, and like you just work towards that, I think is really important.
And it gives you confidence.
Yeah.
And you prove to yourself that what you're made of and what we can do.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, we're coming to the end of our time. It's like flown. But what I would like to hear from you, so this podcast is all about sharing what good people are doing around the world, like yourself, and you're definitely doing a lot of good around the world. But I'd love to hear from you to, you know, what would you say to someone who's listening to this, who's looking to go out there and do their own bit of good in the world? What sort of advice would you offer them?
Do it. Like actually do it. You know what I mean? Like I think that's, I guess, one of the takeaways is to do it, and that even that quote little thing, you know, that you're doing, you're like, oh yeah, it's insignificant. Like we were talking about, planting a tree, you know, or like, being nice to this person, it's like, it is not insignificant. I think like even the littlest bits of good are absolutely, from a physics perspective, like they're shareable and they absolutely do make change. So it reverberates, like it is a ripple. And to like truly like know that, and I think like live through that space of sacredness where it is this traveling thing that does assist, and like coming from that perspective that whether it seems like a small thing or it's a big thing, it does make a difference, and to actually then do it would be my advice.
Beautiful.
Thanks.
So for anyone who's listening to this and they want to check you out or want to find out about what you've got coming up, so what's coming up, what's on the agenda for you of retreats or adventures that other people might be interested in joining along?
Yeah. So I've got a Maui Feminine Awakening in September on the equinox. So that is for women to like figure out what that is, that creating that spaciousness for regeneration and yin, and learning from each other and learning from the land, and just creating that space to tap into that energy. That's what that one's for. Next spring, I'll definitely have one or two in Sedona, maybe one about permaculture and like getting deeper and closer to the land, or just spiritual transformation and such. So we'll definitely have those next spring in Sedona. Probably have one either in like Bali or somewhere, tropical for the winter. So those will be coming out soon. In the meantime, I've got like my membership, which is an ongoing like support system, so that people have like-minded people around them that can like hold them accountable and like have these tools and vibration, like things that keep their vibration up. So I've got that, and just YouTube videos every week so that you can help people and give resources. So amazing.
And just tell us a little bit more about the membership.
Yeah, the membership is super fun. It's the combination of it's this idea of like connection, like with other people that might be missing in daily life. Maybe you're in a place where that's not going to happen in person all the time, and so at least having that online space where you can truly go deep and truly have people that like see you, hear you, care about you, create friendships, at least in the digital space, so that you have that, support and that connection, and like you're in that dialogue with other people. So it's definitely a community space, and it's also very much so like a spiritual tools and personal development transformation space with all kinds of meditations and exercises and practices that have really helped me and like really work, so that you can keep on developing like on your path and becoming a better person. And so it's just a space for that, so you have support and tools like long term, like through life.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah.
And you're living proof that these things work, so it's amazing that you've created it so people can tap into that.
Thanks.
So how can people connect with you? What's the best way?
You can Google my name, Bridget Nielsen. That's like probably one of the easiest ways, or find me on YouTube, Bridget Nielsen. You can see the spelling probably on the actual podcast title.
Yeah.
That's probably the best way.
Well, I'll include links to all of that.
Thank you.
So, lastly, thank you so much for talking with me today. And I get so much out of doing these podcasts and stuff, and it's just amazing to be able to sit down with you, because often I think in the way we live, it can be quite rare maybe to sit down and have these like deep conversations for an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Yes.
So I am really grateful for you to taking that time. So thank you very much.
Thank you, and thanks for doing it. Like you're doing it right now. Like you're doing good. Like that's what it's all about, and you're doing it. And so thank you for doing that.
That's the aim. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
So there is today's episode wrapped up. I really wish and hope that you guys enjoyed this one as much as me. I felt really good after this, like I always do after I do interviews, but this one I just felt, even more so because I was down in Glastonbury, which is a great place to be, and to record this and to get this out there for you guys. And this is, it's an absolute pleasure for me to do this and to be able to share it. And if you've enjoyed this, I would really appreciate it if you would share it with a friend And if you listen to it on Apple Podcasts, leave me a review. That would be really appreciated. And the show notes from now on are now available on the website. So a few of the things that we spoke about today and how you can check out Bridget and maybe go on some of her retreats, or definitely sign and subscribe to her YouTube channel for weekly doses of inspiration. So anyway, I'm going to leave it there for today, guys. Until next time, have a good one.